we're creating support, right? We're creating support, and obviously, like, you know, this daily candle came down, we rejected the support up over there. This candle right over here kind of closed what it is, and now we got this daily candle right over here. Now, when you're trying to define a trend is defined by where you think price is going to go based on the time frame you're looking at. If you're looking at the 1 hour time frame and you think price is going to go bullish, then that's going to be the trend. If you're looking at the 30-minute time frame and you think price is going to go bearish, then that's the trend you're looking at. So let's drop down to the 4-hour time frame and see what's happening right over here now. Now, since we're looking at the 4-hour time frame, we have some more information. Now, obviously, we have to adjust the zones, because if you look over here, this is the zone we drew on the daily, but now we're looking at the 4-hour. So this is the information we see at this point. So let's say we have a support on the 4-hour time frame over here. Awesome. You know, now since we have a support, we have to establish some sort of a resistance. Now we can see that, okay, there's a resistance up over here on the 4-hour time frame, right? Sometimes what traders are going to do is traders are going to say, oh, by the way, guys, there's a link to my free course. It's in the description. Go get it. It's completely free. Basics, you're going to learn a lot. Anyway, sometimes traders are going to say, okay, we got this resistance over here, but then we also got this resistance up over here. So we're going to target that resistance up over there. Now, the problem is this. Currently, we're sort of consolidating, right? We're consolidating, and if you measure the range, this is a 200 pip range over here. 200 pip range. This is the C Trader platform on Dominion Markets, by the way, right? But if we're targeting over here, this is a 175 pip range. So now you got to ask yourself, are you going to target this resistance, or are you going to target up over here? The safest bet is going to be to target right over here based on the 4-hour time frame. Let's drop down to the 1-hour time frame. So we're dropping down and we're adjusting our zones. Adjusting zones is very, very important. Now, let's take a look at this right over here. We're looking at the 1-hour time frame. Obviously, we're looking at the candles. You can see complete details of the candles. This is how you should be doing analysis on the charts. Now, looking at the 1 hour, you can see how this zone is overlapping the 1 hour candles, right? We looked at the 4-hour time frame. 4-hour time frame, it makes sense to zone right over here below the candles. Looking at the 1 hour time frame, now we see that the zone is overlapping the candles right over here. One thing I have to stress on here is that now we have to adjust the zone right here. One thing that people ask me all the time is that shouldn't this zone be thicker like this? And the answer is no. The reason why the answer is no, because you have to look to see where the candles are closing. If you see that the candles are closing around 2384, then that is the point you want the next candle to close. So let's say we put a line right over here, and let me adjust the settings on this line. Let's make this a little bit thicker. Let's make this a little bit blue. So here we go. We got this price here, right? We got this price, 2383. This is the box over here. So what you're trying to do is, let's say if you have a zone which is thicker like this, and you're trying to see that, okay, if a candle is going to close below this area or not, then I'm going to take a trade now. Take a look at this. If price comes down to this area, let's change this to, let's change the color to red. Okay, if price comes down to this area, you want a candle to close bearish over here. Now, if you have a thick zone, this means you don't know whether you should take a sell here or not, because now you have a thick enough zone. So you're confused at this point. My favorite way to look at the zones is this, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this zone a little bit thinner, like this, just like a ballpark value. It doesn't need to have like a specific amount of pips that the zone should be thick enough or something like that. Like, look, now we know that the candles close right over here. So if you look at the candles one by one, you're going to see that the candles were rejecting a specific price, right? So if we're looking at the price right over here, 2383.50, and if you look at the candles, we can see that one candle rejected this, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth candle continued to push up, right? Now, if the next candles come down and you see a candle closing below, what's its price? 23.83. Now you know that in the past we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles reject this area. And if one candle is closing below this area, this means there's a high probability for price to move where? Bearish. There's a high probability for price to move bearish right over here. Now, obviously, there's a low probability that price can move back up here. But like, you know, we're trading based on probabilities. You're always looking at the best possible probability. The best possible probability over here is going to be if you get a candle to close below 23.83 based on this zone. Again, drawing this zone and plotting this area is the most important step when you're trying to do analysis on the chart. Okay, so you have to make sure this zone is thin and it looks neat. Like, look how neat this looks, right? If I extend it, let's say like this and place my blue line right over here, this doesn't look nice at all. This looks so messy, it's fat, it's thick, like all this zone right over here. So this is something that you have to look at right here. And like, you know, eventually if you do get a candle to close below this area, these wicks, they are not rejections, they become wick fills. And let me explain that here. Actually, let's go to a 30-minute time frame first. Now, okay, now we have some more information on 30-minute time frame. Now notice on the 1 hour, this will actually help you in your future analysis as well. Notice on the 1 hour, we have these wicks, right? We have these wicks. If we drop down to the 30-minute time frame, those wicks are basically market structure, right? Look at this. This is market structure. So now you have to further adjust your zone. So what we can do is we can say that, okay, and maybe this can be our support now on the 30-minute time frame. And the reason why on the 30-minute time frame this can be our support is because the 30-minute is a strong enough time frame. 30-minute is a strong enough time frame, which is why our support goes right over here. Now, at the same time, let me do something different over here. Let's go over here and let's come down over here because I see a possible dynamic entry that we can take. We can, I think, we can try to see if we can take a buy over here. Let's take a buy here, execute a buy. This is adjust the stop loss down over here below this candle and let the rest run.
Hello,
awesome.
hello,
Let's go back to our 6-figure account and do this analysis right over now. Again, on the 30-minute time frame, you can see we're creating a support. Now, you have to decide, are you going to take into account the 1 hour or are you going to take into account the 30 minutes? Let me break it down for you. The 30 minute is still a better confirmation time.
ពេលនេះខ្ញុំកំពុងតែស្ដាប់លោក Roger Bang ដែលជាអាចនិយាយបានថាជា idol មែនទេជា guru ជា guru នៅក្នុងរឿងការ trade ដែលយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រប្រកបគឺជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ breakout ជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ breakout ដោយប្រើប្រាស់នៅ clean candlestick សួស្តីលោកoh shit សួស្តីលោកអឹងសេងហេងបាទសួស្តីអរុនសួស្តីអត់មានអីទេថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំចូលមកដើម្បីធ្វើការសង្កេតការ
time frame, right? So now you're looking to see that, okay, if we can get a candle to close below 2381, that's going to be a best possible selling analysis right there. So we're just doing for sells right over here. Now, let's talk about buys.
Okay, let's zoom out. Microphone
over here, let's zoom out.
ដោយសារម៉ៃរបស់ខ្ញុំវាដាច់ជើងចឹងទេក៏ធ្វើឲ្យពិបាកបន្តិចបាទតោះស្ដាប់គាត់បន្តិចវាព្រោះគាត់មានយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ
Now let's take a look at this right now. Looking at the 30-minute time frame, we can see that currently we have a resistance up over here at 23.97. Now notice I'm not going to make the zone thick like this to cover the wicks. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make the zone right over here, right? Something, you know, right over here that we can see that, okay, if we can break above this area, then there's a high probability for price to continue pushing up. And if we extend it here to the left-hand side, you can clearly see that, okay, if we can break above this price, which is, you know, right over here, let's change the attributes of this, which will be, let's make this a little bit thicker. Let's make this blue like this, right? Let's make this blue, right? So if we can break above 23.97.98, there are these wicks here to the left hand side, which becomes a wick fill. So you're just kind of like, you know, you're doing analysis based on the fact that, okay, where can price go if we break above this area? Let's say we break above 23.97 and you get a candle that closes above 23.97, closes above. If this candle is still open and you got these wicks here to the left hand side, this means that this candle can close back in the range if it's still open. So you need this candle to actually close above this area, because once we have a candle closing above this area, guess what happens to these wicks? These wicks then become wick fills, right? So you have to wait for the candle to close above 23.97. So these wicks, excuse me, so these wicks, they become wick fills. Now, currently looking at the chart right over here, the reason why I entered a buy
គាត់ភ្លេចបញ្យល់អំពីចំណុច fake out នៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះវាអាចមានឱកាសនៅក្នុងការធ្វើ fake out សូមធ្វើការ react ទៅលើ video ការបង្រៀនរបស់លោក Roger Bank ដែលជាកំពូលអ្នក trade នៅក្នុងយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ clean candle ឬក៏ break out ដោយប្រើ clean candle ត្រង់កន្លែងនេះតែគាត់និយាយខ្ញុំបន្តសិន
buy. The reason why I entered a buy is this, because look, we have a support formed right here. We have a support formed at this point.
Support.
Price moved up, and then we created another support at this point. We've created another support. We're moving into the London session. We're moving into the pre-New York volume. So if we're creating support, there's a very high probability that we can fill this wick here in the 30-minute time frame, and with volume, maybe with NY open, we can break above 23.98, which is going to be a great idea.
ហ្នឹងគឺនៅក្នុង London session London move to New York បន្ទាប់ពី London គឺ New York
to move up. So whenever you're doing analysis on the charts, you have to start from the daily, obviously daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, 30 minute, and as you move down the time frames, you have to adjust those zones, because adjusting those zones is very important, because only then you'll be able to see that, okay, which zone matters, how to do the zones, how fat your zone should be. I like to keep my zones, you know, like thin, crisp, and I like to look at the markets in a way where I can see the candles themselves, because seeing proper candles is the best way to view the candles. Now, if we're in the zone, we can see right over here, if we, let's say, break below 23.89, this is, 80 pip range, so like, so on and so forth. So I hope this helped. Whenever you're opening up the chart, whenever you're doing your analysis, just look at the way where you can see the candles. If you cannot see the candles themselves, there's no reason to take the trade.
គាត់ភ្លេចប្រាប់អំពីត្រង់ចំណុចនេះបើសិនបើខ្ញុំផ្សាយផ្ទាល់ខ្ញុំនឹងសួរគាត់ត្រង់កន្លែងនេះតើយើងមានវិធានការយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីឲ្យយើងបានជៀសវាងអំពី fake breakout ឬក៏ false breakout នៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះដែលគាត់គូshop ប្រហែលជាដឹកហ្នឹងណាអូខេកន្លែងនេះបាទត្រង់កន្លែងនេះគាត់គួរតែបញ្យល់ថែមអំពីរឿងបញ្ហាការដែលវា break ការដែលវាចន្លោះញាក់យើងញាក់ឡើងខាងលើហើយវាបន្តចុះមកក្រោមនេះគេហៅថា false breakout ឬក៏ fake breakout តើយើងគួរមានវិធានការយ៉ាងណា គាត់សម្លឹងក្នុងគណៈពេលដែលវា break នៅ zone break នៅតំបន់resistance កន្លែងនេះគឺគាត់សម្លឹង cool down មកដល់កន្លែងនេះតែម្ដង I feel the weak មកបំពេញនៅ snow ទៀនខាងលើនេះតែម្ដងគឺតែគាត់អត់បង្ហាញអំពីថាតើយើងមានវិធានការយ៉ាងម៉េចដើម្បីធ្វើការជៀសវាងនៅ fall breakout ឬក៏ fake breakout ហ្នឹងចំណុចហ្នឹងសម្រាប់យុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ breakout គឺនេះគឺជាបញ្ហាធំក្រោយពេលវា break ក៏មិនដែរមិនមែនជា break ដែលការពិតវាជា break បែបកុហកឬក៏ញាក់យើងញាក់លើតតក្រោមភាគច្រើនគឺវាជួបហេតុការណ៍បែបហ្នឹងគាត់គួរបញ្យល់កន្លែងហ្នឹងបន្ថែម
Wicks excuse me so these wicks they become wick fills now currently looking at the chart right over here the reason why I entered a buy entered a buy is this because look we have a support formed right here we have a support formed at this point price moved up and then we created another support at this point we've created another support we're moving into the London session we're moving into the pre-New York volume so if we're creating support there's a very high probability that we can fill this wick here in the 30-minute time frame and with volume maybe with NY open we can break above 23.98 which is going to be a great idea to move up so whenever you're doing analysis on the charts you have to start from the daily obviously daily 4 hour 1 hour 30 minute and as you move down the time frames you have to adjust those zones because adjusting those zones is very important because only then you'll be able to see that okay which zone matters how to do the zones
សម្រាប់ GBP JPY គឺសម្រាប់ថ្ងៃច័ន្ទគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍មែនតើគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ equal high យើងឃើញ equal high របស់វាថងតែនេះដាក់ការសង្កេតមុននឹងបើកទីផ្សារនៅថ្ងៃស្អែក មុននឹងបើកទីផ្សារនៅថ្ងៃស្អែកនេះគឺ time frame បាទ time frame 1ម៉ោងចុះ time frame 30នាទីអូខេ30នាទីវាមកខាងនេះវិញ30នាទីទៅតម្លើងវាមកបន្តិច yes តម្លើងវាបន្តិចចេះមកប៉ិតមិនបាច់តម្រូវទេមិនចាំបាច់តម្រូវអតីតឆ្ងាយពេកទេគឺបែបនេះគួរតែជាបែបនេះ clone វាស្មើនឹងចម្លង copy អូខេថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំថា time pair time គូ time គូកា trade មួយទៀតក្រៅពីមីហើយនិង Bitcoin ជាទូទៅខ្ញុំ trade ពីរហ្នឹងថ្ងៃនេះសូមដាក់បន្ថែមផ្នែក forex គឺ foreign exchange គឺគូ GBP JPY បើជាករណីសិក្សាដើម្បីធ្វើជាករណីសិក្សាហើយបានខ្ញុំជ្រើសរើសGBP JPY pound yen និយាយពី GBP JPY វាយូរវាវែងពេកខ្ញុំប្រាប់វា pound yen ហើយបានខ្ញុំជ្រើស pound yen ហើយបានខ្ញុំជ្រើស pound yen British pound Japanese yen ពីព្រោះខ្ញុំ trade នៅក្នុងTokyo session ខ្ញុំ trade នៅក្នុង Tokyo session ដូច្នេះខ្ញុំធ្វើរើសគូពីព្រោះ Tokyo session វាក្រោយពេលNew York session អញ្ចឹងបើថា New York session ត្រូវបានបិទហើយបន្តនៅ Tokyo session ខ្ញុំឈប់ហៅ ASEAN session ខ្ញុំមក Tokyo វិញត្រឡប់មកសូមហៅ Tokyo session វិញកាន់ចេះមួយយ៉ាងដែរវារវល់តែលក្ខណៈរៀងទំនងណា
The ray tool, it only gives us 2 points to adjust. All right, we have drawn our very first upward trend line. Now, this isn't the end. So we have just simply drawn one trend line on the monthly time frame. We need to continue doing our top-down analysis. So that means we need to work our way down to the lower time frames. So we're at the monthly, let's go down to the weekly. And essentially what I'm trying to do is modify my lines to make sure they're a little bit more accurate. As you can see, it's a little bit off now. So I need to adjust it to this new low. And then what I'm doing is I am capturing as much of the movement of the price as I possibly can. So I'm going to continue to connect these trend lines, and it will start to look like a fan of trend lines. Each new line will use the previous point B as its new point A. And let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to continue to mark up my charts and draw steeper trend lines. I'm now in the weekly time frame. I'm going to go back to that ray tool, and now my point A is going to be my previous point B, that previous recent touch point. Boom. And now same scenario. I'm looking for the next low, the next most recent low. Now you'd think it would be here, but there's an even more recent low over here. So I'm going to take this point B and boop, move it right here. So now we've got yet another 1, 2, 3 touch point upward trend line, same as the last one that we drew in the monthly time frame, but now we're in the weekly. And now we have truly capitalized or identified as much movement as possible. So we've got one trend line and we've got another trend line here. We are truly following the price in this direction that it's going in. We're utilizing all of the movement here. All right, we're in the weekly. We got to continue to go down. We're going to go to the daily. Now there's going to be some instances where you move down in time frame and there's not anything different you can do. There's no other trend lines that you can draw, so you'll continue to simply move down time frames. So we're in the weekly. Let's move down to the daily. All right, in the daily time frame, same scenario here. We're going to use our previous point B, which is right here, as our new point A. And then we're looking for the next most recent low. Boop, right here, without price intersecting. All right, we're at the daily. Let's go to the 4-hour time frame. Now, as far as our upward trend lines go, we cannot come in any steeper. This is an instance where there isn't a change or there isn't a difference. There's nowhere we can draw an additional trend line from the daily to the 4-hour. But what I can see is now we can finally draw our very first downward trend line. So we've got our upward trend lines, but now we need to find our downward trend lines. When drawing downward trend lines, it's the same concept that we used for the upwards, but opposite. So for the downward trend lines, we're looking for the highest point we see on the chart. The highest point I see on the chart is going to be right here at 45,224-ish. So that's going to be your point A. Now point B is going to be a lower high, a recent lower high where price has not yet intersected. That's as far as we can go with the downward trend lines. But I can see a steeper downward trend line that I can draw right here in the 4-hour time frame without having to go down to the 1 hour yet. So I'm going to come in with another trend line. New point A is always going to be previous point B. All right, beautiful touch points here. Now in the 4-hour time frame, that's as far as I can go. But now I can go down to the 1 hour time frame. This is where we're going to stay. How do you know what time frame you stay in or which time frame you stop in? And that's going to be which time frame you have committed to or decided to trade in. I don't jump time frames. I don't go from lower back to higher looking for sooner entries. I commit to one time frame and look for my entries and exits in that specific time frame. But when marking up my charts for the first time, I will always do this top-down analysis. So that's how I know I'm going to stop in the 1 hour time frame. But I do see some adjustments I can make to my lines, and I can see a steeper trend line that I can draw. So we're going to continue to use our previous point B as new point A, and here we go. This is a lower high right here. Now I can even come in a little bit steeper. Previous point B, new point A, and here we go. All right, if the price of the YM can continue down right here, this will be a 3 touch point trend line right here. Now, we've done all of our analysis. We've done all of our chart markups from top down, from the monthly to the weekly to the daily to the 4 hour, all the way down to the 1 hour time frame where I'm going to make my trading decisions. So I have demonstrated how to mark up your charts and how to accurately draw your trend lines. Next, how do we incorporate these trend lines into our trading strategy and how can they provide clarity and confidence? We're gonna go over 2 different types of examples when trading trend lines. There are 2 options. We can trade a breakout strategy or a bounce strategy, or a combination of the 2. So when incorporating the bounce strategy, when price gets to one of our trend lines, we're anticipating that the price is going to bounce off of that trend line, suggesting that this is going to be a trend continuation. And I'll give you an example in just a moment. And then the breakout strategy, which is my all-time favorite. This is when price breaks through a trend line, indicating a potential trend reversal. Okay, so let's go over the concept of trading the bounce of a trend line. So right here where the price is at now of the YM, we're gonna go ahead and take a short position, anticipating that this is going to be a trend continuation, that this is simply just going to be yet another touch point to this downward trend, and it's going to continue down. So this is where we would place a sell order. we're in a short position now. Now, how do we mitigate our risk? So we are currently in a short position, anticipating that the price of the Dow is going to continue down and just simply bounce off of this trend line. There's going to be many ways of mitigating risk, understanding the capital that you have to trade, the capital that you have in your account, and how much percentage in conjunction to the capital should you be risking. A great rule of thumb, especially for beginners, is going to be anywhere between 1 and 2% of your capital. Now, let's say you have an account size of $128,000. That means we could risk anywhere between $100 to $2,500 in this specific trade. So now that's a good rule of thumb to know, okay, if this trade doesn't work out, we're willing to risk $1,000 to $2,500. But now let's see if we actually need to risk that much in this specific setup. So where do we put our stop loss? Our stop loss is going to go on the other side of our downward trend line. So if the price doesn't bounce off of this downward trend line, we know, okay, time to close this trade, time to take a loss. Now in this scenario, we only need to risk $50. If the price comes up to $43,719, we know, all right, this wasn't a bounce of the downward trend line. I'm willing to lose $50 on this trade. So we have our stop loss in place. If the price comes up, breaks this downward trend line, and hits this $43,719, we have just taken a $51 loss. But now what happens if the price continues in our favor? The coolest part about this strategy is we don't have a take profit set. Now you're more than welcome to add one and to have one. If you don't want to hold this trade for that long, if you're simply just looking to get a quick buck or build that confidence or just rack up those small wins, absolutely use a take profit. And a good rule of thumb for take profits is always to use an area of support or resistance where the price is likely to hit and turn around multiple times. So putting our take profit at $43,434 is an ideal take profit, since the likelihood of the price getting back to this area, which it's done in the past, and then turning around is very high. We could simply add a take profit here, making $91 for this trade. Or my favorite way to do it is allow the trend to play out. Allow the trend to move. If the price of the Dow continues in our favor, which I'll do a little path tool just to give you an idea, if it continues down, pulls up a little bit, comes up, comes down, continues along this downward trend line, we're able to take our stop loss and trail it into profit. So it's no longer at that negative $51. Now we trail it and we move it along that trend line. But as soon as price breaks the downward trend line that we're anticipating it to follow, then we know it's time to take that profit. So now let's say that price does finally break. That means we would have been able to move our stop all the way down to $43,358, knocking us out of our trade with a profit of $129. So just think of it like manually moving your stop into profit as price progresses, as price moves in your favor along that trend line, and then you simply just wait for the price to break out of that trend line and take your profits. Or if the trade doesn't work out, you'll know pretty quickly, especially when trading the bounce, by putting that stop on the other side of your trend line where we originally had it here at this $43,719. Now let's go over another scenario, the breakout method. So we're going to close this trade here and go over a second scenario. Since we don't have a breakout of price in this example, I'm going to draw an example with the path tool. So let's say that the price of the YM continues down and breaks this upward trend line. Using the breakout strategy with trend lines, we enter when price breaks a trend line instead of bouncing. So we are anticipating that this is going to be a trend reversal. So a reversal of this upward trend line. Now this upward trend line was drawn in a higher time frame, so it holds a little bit more weight. So we're thinking that this higher time frame upward trend is about to get a reversal, and we're going to be continuing down on this new trend here. So let's say that we consider taking a short position here. We would think short positions because price broke instead of thinking short positions because price bounced. So we're thinking short positions right here at 43,417. There we go. We've got our short position right here. Now, how do we mitigate the risk? It's going to be the same exact scenario that we mitigated our risk using the bounce, but what's different about this strategy is our entries are based on different reasons. So instead of anticipating a bounce, we are anticipating a trend reversal. So we're still thinking short positions right here at this 43,413-ish. And now where does our stop go? We're going to put as though if the price was to come up and break our downward trend line, we would put our stop somewhere around this 43,592. If the price was to come up and break, we would think, okay, close me out, take my loss at, it's probably going to be around, if this is the same scenario, it'd probably be still around that $50. And this is going to be same scenario. So we're going to continue to stay in this trade as long as the price continues along this downward trend line. So same exact scenario for the exits. You're going to trail that stop. If price progresses in your favor, you get to move that stop into profit. If the price doesn't work out and breaks this downward trend line, then we take our $50 loss. Now we can increase position size. I just used one contract as an example before, but since this account size on the paper trade is 128,000, we could risk anywhere between $1,000 and $2,500 for each trade here. That 1 to 2%. Or, especially for the newbies and the beginners, just experimenting with one micro is an excellent place to start, especially in the futures market. Now, the exit criteria is exactly the same as the bounce. As long as the price continues along this trend line, we're happy. We're making money. We get to move that stop into profit. If it doesn't work out, we took that $51 loss and then we're on to the next trade. Now let's go over a real world scenario where I used this method on a live account. So we have our upward trend line here. We've got 1, 2, 3 touch points. The price broke out of it. That was my indication to take a short position since price broke out of the upward trend line. And then what kept me in? Where did my stop loss go? Stop loss went on the other side of the downward trend line. So I was willing to risk $8,900 if the price, as soon as I got in, broke the downward trend line. And then how long do I stay in for? So remember that scenario where I said, if you're looking to close profits, to take those small wins, or you're not looking to hold that trade for as long as possible, you want to look for an area of support or resistance as a take profit. So we have our entry based on the break of a downward trend line. And then the price got to an area of support where it's very likely that the price of crude oil here was to hit and turn around, hit and turn around. It hit and turned around here. So I closed my trade here at this 72.26-ish area and made a profit of $27,683. I had a 3.11 R here, and this is a real example of an actual trade that I placed using the breakout strategy. So here's a few advanced tips for you traders already utilizing trend lines. When you've done your top-down analysis and you've marked up your charts and placed all your trend lines, as price progresses, price will intersect and cross through those original trend lines. So you're going to have to adjust your trend lines on a regular basis to adapt to the market. That means utilizing new point A's and new point B's, steeper trend lines, or adjusting the trend lines that have already been crossed to either a new low or a new high, making sure the price hasn't intersected yet. And a huge one that I went over already is incorporating the multiple time frames, incorporating that top-down analysis. Seeing what price has done overall in a much higher time frame gives you such a clearer view of the overall direction of a trend. And then as you move from that higher time frame, you go into those lower time frames and then you stop at the one you've decided to trade. And then the last tip was utilizing those areas of support and resistance for take profits. 1, if you're not willing to hold that trade for as long as possible, and 2, if you're just simply looking to rack up those small wins and look for a sooner area to take profit. So this was a complete guide of how to do your top-down analysis, how to accurately draw your trend lines, and utilize a strategy to help you make decisions based on these trend lines. I encourage you guys to mark up your charts and integrate these strategies into your trading. As always, guys, hit the link in the description to be part of my community where I teach this strategy much more in depth. You can learn alongside my team and my community. All right, friends, thanks for joining me today. That's all I have.
Visit. If you check 5 minutes में प्रॉपर साइडवेज है, मतलब खत्म है, प्रॉपर साइडवेज है। बट अगर वैसे देखेंगे ठीक ठाक है बड़े टाइम फ्रेम में। टारगेट रखना सर 1:2 to 1:3 का।
नहीं हो जाता, मार्केट मूवमेंट नहीं करेगा। कल यही तो गलती किए थे, 1 आवर प्रिपेयर होने से पहले ही हमारा ट्रेड था और फिर मार्केट ने दिया लॉस। कल की गलती को मत भूलो एंड देन फिर व्यू बना।
Hey traders, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most powerful scalping strategies top traders use to stay ahead of the game. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this strategy will transform the way you trade. In this video, you're going to learn exactly how to decode how trading machines and algorithms move the market, the hidden patterns that big institutions leave behind. Once you know how to recognize these patterns, you'll be able to spot institutional trades as they happen and take advantage of the same opportunities. But here's where it gets even better. I'll be sharing 4 costly mistakes I made when I was starting out. These mistakes set me back over. They create false signals to trick retail traders into thinking the market might drop further. Finally, we get the rally, a strong upward move as smart money takes control, pushing the price higher. This drop-based rally pattern marks a key demand zone, a spot where smart money left their footprints. As a scalper, you know this zone is a reference point for institutions. When the market revisits this area, there's a strong chance it will explode higher again. Because when smart money bought here, they didn't do it all at once, they bought gradually to avoid spiking the market. When the price comes back to this zone, institutions have limit orders waiting, and retail traders who try to jump in too soon often place their stop losses nearby. The result? The market sweeps liquidity, triggering those stops and then surging upward, exactly the move we want as scalpers. But this is just 1% of the whole strategy. Keep watching because the next part will really show you how to leverage this pattern for consistent profits. Now let's switch to the rally base drop, a classic bearish reversal pattern. The market rallies upward, hits a base where institutions start selling, and then drops sharply. This base forms the supply zone, where smart money leaves its footprints, creating a high probability area for future price action. When the price revisits this zone, institutions already have their limit orders waiting, and the market often sweeps liquidity from retail traders who have placed their stop losses just above the zone. This triggers a strong drop, exactly the move we want to catch as scalpers. Now, looking at this real chart, we see the rally-based drop pattern in action. First, there's a rally, a move driven by smart money as the price pushes higher. Then, the market hits a base. This is where institutional traders begin offloading their positions, creating a supply zone. What happens next? The price makes a sharp drop, but this is where we need to stay patient. As scalpers, we wait for the market to retest the supply zone. This is the moment smart money might come back in. When the market revisits this zone, it's our chance to enter quickly and catch the next downward move. The key here is the retest. That's where we can get in without needing to chase the move. Once we're in, we look to exit fast, locking in profits before the market fully reacts. Now, let me show you something truly powerful. In this same chart example, we can see the market creating both a drop-based rally and a rally-based drop, a perfect illustration of how smart money operates. First, the market forms a drop-based rally, creating a demand zone. As the market approaches this zone, it sweeps liquidity and then moves upwards. This is a classic smart money move, taking out retail traders before driving the price in their intended direction. Later in the same chart, we see the market form a rally-based drop, establishing a supply zone. Once again, as the market returns to this zone, it sweeps liquidity and moves downwards, trapping retail traders in the process. What's happening here is no accident. These are trading machines, algorithms programmed to trade this way. By mastering these patterns, you're essentially decoding how the machines and algorithms trade. The beauty of this strategy is that it's robotic. These moves repeat frequently in the market, offering endless opportunities. So by identifying where smart money enters and exits, you can start taking the same trades and trade like a pro. Now, don't take any action just yet. This is just the basics. I'm laying the foundation, but we're going to go much deeper into this strategy. So keep watching because by the end, you'll know exactly how to use this setup to its full potential and make the most out of these market moves. Next, let's look at the rally-based rally pattern. This one's all about bullish continuation. Here's what we're looking for. The price makes a strong rally, and instead of reversing, it forms a base. But this time, the base isn't signaling a drop, It's just a pause before the price continues its upward move. This base shows us where institutions are building up more buying power, and when the price pushes up again, it confirms that buyers are still in control. Looking at this real chart, we can see the rally-base rally pattern play out perfectly. First, there's a strong rally. Smart money and institutions are driving the price upward. This is a clear sign that they're stepping in and taking control of the market. But here's where psychology gets interesting. The market pauses, forming a base. For retail traders, this might look like indecision or a sign that momentum is fading. But for those in the know, it's a completely different story. This base is where institutions are quietly adding to their positions, preparing for the next leg up. They're accumulating more buying power while keeping the market calm. What we're looking for here is the next move, the second rally. When the price breaks out of the base, that's our confirmation that buyers, led by smart money, are still in control. As scalpers, our focus is to catch the move when the price returns to retest the base. That's where we can enter quickly, ride the continuation, and exit just as fast with profits in hand. Finally, let's break down the drop base.
បាទសួស្តីជំរាបសួរលោកសូរ៉ា សង្កេតថាBitcoin នៅក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះវាធ្វើចលនាយ៉ាងម៉េចបន្ទាប់ ឥ មានគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទៅក្នុង time frame 1ម៉ោងនិង30នាទី drawing បងគេថា BTC ថ្ងៃហ្នឹងយ៉ាងម៉េចដែរអូខេខ្ញុំចង់បង្ហាញត្រង់កន្លែងនេះខ្ញុំចង់បង្ហាញត្រង់កន្លែងនេះដែលជាចំណុចដ៏គួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍នេះគឺជា time frame weekly time frame weekly នេះយើងគេឃើញថា candle ទៀនដែលវាបន្តធ្វើដំណើរមករហូតតាំងពីប្រហែលសប្តាហ៍មុន1 2 3 4 5គឺវា bullish មករហូតគឺវាបិទទៀនត្រូវបានបិទជា bullish មករហូតជាបន្តបន្ទាប់រយៈពេល1 2 3 4 5សប្តាហ៍តើលោកអ្នកយល់ថាយ៉ាងម៉េចនឹងរវាងដំណើររបស់វាបន្ទាប់យើងដាក់ការសង្កេតមកត្រង់កន្លែងនេះគឺជាអ្វីនេះគឺជា resistance ដ៏រឹងមាំមួយនៅក្នុង time frame weekly សំណួររបស់យើងចោទជាសំណួរសួរថាតើវាធ្វើការ respect ឬក៏រົບនៅ zone នេះឬក៏ពេលនេះ time frame weekly នៅសល់ត្រឹមតែ18ម៉ោងជាងតែប៉ុណ្ណោះនៅសល់ត្រឹមតែ18ម៉ោង23នាទីនៅពេលនេះតើវាធ្វើការ respect ឬក៏អត់អូខេយើងយល់ដោយ long term រយៈពេលវែងវាមានឱកាសនៅក្នុងការបន្តឡើងទម្លុះនៅโซននេះជាការពិតក៏ប៉ុន្តែមុនបន្តឡើងហ្នឹងវាធ្វើអីវាធ្វើត្រូវជួបនៅឧបសគ្គមុននឹងបន្តឡើងឧបសគ្គរបស់វាគោលគឺនៅពេលនេះវាថងឡើងនេះគឺ resistance ថងឡើងនេះអញ្ចឹងវាអាចធ្វើនៅចលនា consolidate ក្នុង time frame តូចconsolidate គឺធ្វើលក្ខណៈ sideways នៅក្នុង time frame តូចកំឡុងពេលនេះកំឡុងនៅក្នុងរង្វង់នៅក្នុងក្របនេះមុននឹងវាទម្លុះមុននឹងវាធ្វើការទម្លុះ zone នេះជាការសន្តានរបស់ខ្ញុំទៅលើចលនាសម្រាប់ Bitcoin នៅពេលនេះដែលយើងសម្លឹងឃើញតាមរយៈបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះ time frame weekly បាទខ្ញុំសូមគូសrectangle មុននឹងចោះទៅបង្ហាញលោកអ្នកនៅក្នុង time frame នៅក្នុង time frame daily វិញឲ្យប៉ះយើងគួរឲ្យប៉ះចឹងមកដើម្បីដាក់ការសង្កេតបន្តនៅក្នុង time frame daily នេះគឺជាការធ្វើ top down ការវិភាគ top down analysis ពី time frame ធំចូលចោះទៅ time frame តូចចឹងយើងចោះមក time frame daily មក daily ដែលអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំបានគិតបាញ់មិញវាហាក់ដូចជាធ្វើនៅមកធ្វើនៅការគោរព respect រួចរាល់នៅតាមចំណុចហ្នឹងនៅក្នុង resistance call តងកន្លែងហ្នឹងវាអាចមកធ្វើការចលនា sideways នៅក្នុងម្ដុំនេះមុននឹងវាបន្តឡើងឬក៏វាបន្តធ្លាក់ចុះតែយ៉ាងណាក៏វាបង្ហាញនៅអ្វីបង្ហាញនៅចលនាឡើងចុះនៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះមួយរយៈកាលសិនអញ្ចឹងការដែលឡើងការដែលវាបន្តឡើងឬវាចុះវាអាស្រ័យទៅលើការ break វាអាស្រ័យទៅលើការធ្វើការ break ទៅខាងលើឬខាងក្រោម break support ឬក៏ break resistance យើងដាក់ការសង្កេតសិននេះគឺ time frame ធំ time frame ធំមែនតើគឺ daily ដូច្នេះខ្ញុំសូមចោះទៅ time frame តូចបន្ថែមគឺ4ម៉ោងឃើញអត់4ម៉ោងយើងឃើញថាវាអូខេប្រសិនបើយើងគូសយើងនៅក្នុង time frame daily ខ្ញុំសូមគូសបែបនេះអានេះខ្ញុំសូមឲ្យបំភ្លេចចោលសិនព្រោះយើងដឹងថាជា zone support ជា zone resistance នៅក្នុង time frame weekly អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមគូសbox បែបនេះមុននឹងចោះទៅ time frame 4ម៉ោងដើម្បីឲ្យយើងឃើញរូបភាពថានៅក្នុង time frame daily ដែលយើងគូសប្រអប់ហ្នឹងតើនៅក្នុង time frame បន្ទាប់ពី daily នេះគឺអ្វី4ម៉ោងវាធ្វើចលនាបែបនេះវាធ្វើចលនាមួយទៀតនៅក្នុងក្របតូចនៅក្នុងក្របធំគឺបែបនេះហើយត្រូវបាន break នៅក្របប្រអប់ដោយទៀននេះបាទហើយអញ្ចឹងសំណួរយើងសួរថាតើនេះគឺជាការដែលកំពុងចុះមកធ្វើ retest ឬក៏យ៉ាងណា pull back មកធ្វើ retest មុននឹងបន្តឡើងទៅលើឬក៏យ៉ាងម៉េចសាក់ថ្ម កន្លែងនេះសំខាន់បងប្អូន trader កន្លែងនេះសំខាន់ជាហេតុការណ៍ដែលយើងត្រូវការដាក់ការសង្កេតឲ្យបានដល់បំផុតនៅក្នុងនៅក្នុងទម្រង់បែបនេះនៅក្នុង pattern បែបនេះចឹងខ្ញុំសូមគូប្រអប់ box នេះមួយទៀតដែលជា box rectangle ប្រអប់ rectangle មួយទៀតនៅក្នុងតូចនៅក្នុងធំតូចនៅក្នុងធំបាទពេលនេះយើងវិភាគទៅតាមអ្វីដែលឃើញថាវាត្រូវបាន break ទម្លុះនៅប្រអប់តូចគឺទម្លុះឡើងទៅលើគឺបំទម្លុះនៅ resistance នៅក្នុងប្រអប់តូចក្រោយពេលវាទម្លុះវាធ្វើចលនាមួយទៀតគឺវា pull back មក retest គេអាចថាបានវាពេលនេះវាមក retest នៅក្នុង zone zone ចាស់ថាតើក្រោយពេល retest វាបន្តឡើងប្រសិនបើវាធ្វើចលនាមួយគឺទានបិទនៅពេលនេះវាអត់បិទសន្និដ្ឋានថាប្រសិនបើវាបិទលក្ខណៈបែបហ្នឹងហើយវាបន្តបើកជា bullish យើងអាចសន្និដ្ឋានបានថាវាជាកំពុងតែធ្វើវាតម្រង់នៅ support ដើម្បីបន្តឡើងទៅលើបាទហើយនេះយើងរងចាំថាតើវា retest ហើយវាបង្ហាញចលនា support ឬក៏អត់បាទតាមនេះគឺ time frame នេះជា time frame 4ម៉ោងយើងចោះទៅ1ម៉ោងយើងចោះទៅ1ម៉ោងទៀតថាតើយើងឃើញអ្វីតើយើងនឹងឃើញអ្វីបន្ទាប់1ម៉ោង1ម៉ោងយើងចាប់ផ្ដើមឃើញអំពី support តង់កន្លែងនេះបងប្អូន trader support តង់កន្លែងនេះចប់គូឲ្យវាស្អាតគឺ support វាថាជាបែបនេះ support តង់កន្លែងនេះប្រសិនវាបន្តទម្លុះឡើងលើអានេះគឺជាអ្វីអានេះគឺជា fake resistance គេអាចថាបានប្រសិនបើវាទម្លុះបែបនេះអានេះគឺខ្លាចជា fake resistance គឺវាធ្វើ resistance តូចមួយដែលมันមានទម្ងន់ប្រមាណក៏ប៉ុន្តែប្រសិនបើទៀនមួយនេះទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្នវាតូចពេកដែរសម្រាប់ការគូសរបស់ខ្ញុំវាបែបនេះទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្នវាមកបែបនេះអូតោទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្នប្រសិនបើវាបិទបែបនេះអូខេនេះជារឿងមួយផ្សេងទៀតនេះគឺជារឿង bearish បន្តបាទប្រសិនបើវាបិទបែបហ្នឹងដាក់ការសង្កេតចឹងដោយសារពេលនេះគឺយើងអត់ទាន់មានសញ្ញាឬក៏ signal ដែលជា confirmation មួយក្នុងចំណោម confirmation ទាំងអស់វាអត់ទាន់ឃើញអញ្ចឹងយើងដាក់ការសង្កេតសិនលុបចេញរញ៉េរញ៉ៃពេលនេះវាមក ធ្វើ retest ក៏ដូចជាការធ្វើនៅ support នៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះយើងឃើញថាវា support របស់វាលើកជើងខ្ពស់រហូតតាំងពីនេះមកបាទតាំងពីនេះមកជាលក្ខណៈ uptrend ជាលក្ខណៈ uptrend ដោយវាបំបែកគោលនៅ resistance តកន្លែងនេះទី1ទី2ទី3ថាទី4ចឹងវាបានបំបែកទម្លុះឬក៏ break ដោយទៀនមួយនេះ ទៀន bullish មួយនេះខ្ញុំគូសដូរពណ៌សិនឲ្យវាមានភាពស្អាតបន្តិចដោយទៀនដោយ candle មួយនេះហើយវាធ្វើការ pull back ដើម្បី retest មកប៉ះនៅ zone តំបន់ចាស់ខាងកន្លែងនេះហើយជាលក្ខណៈធ្វើនៅតម្រង់ support បច្ចុប្បន្នក៏ប៉ុន្តែអ្វីដែលយើងត្រូវប្រយ័ត្នប្រយែងគឺត្រង់ candle មួយនេះទៀនមួយនេះបាទទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះថាតើវាបាត់បែបណានៅពេលនេះតែ time frame 1ម៉ោងទៀននេះគឺជាទៀន time frame 1ម៉ោងបាទនៅសល់ត្រឹមតែ10នាទីទៀតតែប៉ុណ្ណោះថាតើទៀន1ម៉ោងនេះវាបាត់លក្ខណៈយ៉ាងម៉េចបច្ចុប្បន្នគឺវា bearish បច្ចុប្បន្នគឺវា bearish ដោយសារវាអត់តន់ឃើញចលនាដែលគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ដែលជាការបង្ហាញថាវាមាន confirmation ឲ្យដល់យើងនេះ time frame 1ម៉ោងគឺជា time frame មួយដែលមធ្យមធំដែរធំកដាលអញ្ចឹងយើងសង្កេតឃើញយើងនឹងសង្កេតឃើញមានចលនានៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះបើសិនបើយើងកន្លែងទៅមើល time frame តូចវាអាចជាចលនា sideways មួយដែរជាចលនា sideways កំពុងតែធ្វើចលនាឡើងចុះនៅក្នុងក្របនៅក្នុងប្រអប់នេះអញ្ចឹងវាជាអ្វីវាជាប្រអប់មួយផ្សេងទៀតដែលយើងត្រូវដាក់ការសង្កេតថាតើវាទម្លុះប្រអប់ទៅលើឬក៏ទម្លុះប្រអប់ទៅក្រោមវាអាស្រ័យទៅលើបើសិនបើទៅក្រោមដូចខ្ញុំបានបង្ហាញ candle មួយមិញហ្នឹងគឺ candle bearish បច្ចុប្បន្ននេះខ្ញុំគូសបែបនេះអូខេបើតែទៀនមួយនេះវាបង្ហាញbearish បែបនេះគឺ wow នេះគឺជារឿងមួយផ្សេងទៀតដែលជាត្រូវដាក់ការចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទៅលើការtrade sell short ខ្លីៗរងចាំថាតើវាបាត់បែបណានៅសល់8 9នាទីទៀត8 9នាទីទៀតរងចាំទស្សនាភាពបន្តបើសិនបើជាការ retest bid pull back មកដើម្បីធ្វើការ retest bid ទៀនមួយនេះវាត្រូវបង្ហាញនៅអ្វីវាត្រូវធ្វើចេះអូបើជាការឡើងខ្ញុំត្រូវដូរពណ៌វាត្រូវធ្វើអញ្ចេះវាត្រូវធ្វើបែបនេះមកធ្វើកតុយទៀនវាមកវាតម្រង់កតុយទៀនបែបនេះមកអញ្ចេះនេះវាអាច2អាច3ក៏ប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំគ្រាន់តែបង្ហាញឲ្យឃើញរូបភាពតែប៉ុណ្ណោះតែបើទៀនជាក់ស្ដែងវាអញ្ចឹងមែនបានន័យថា wow បានថា volume វាកំពុងតែមកដល់គ្រប់យ៉ាងវាអាចទៅរួចអាចតែមកទៀនដោយរូបភាពដូចខ្ញុំបានគូសមិញហ្នឹងក៏អាចទៅរួចគ្រប់យ៉ាងវាអាចទៅរួចបើមិនអាចទៅរួចទេអាច2ឬក៏អីចឹងទៅ2 3អីចឹងមុននឹងវា break នៅមុនវាធ្វើការនៅ break មុននឹងវាធ្វើការ break សូនហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹង bias របស់យើងគឺទៅជាការ buy long ទៅជាការ buy long វិញនេះគឺជា idea ខ្លះៗក៏ដូចជាការធ្វើការសង្កេតទៅលើវាបែបនេះសង្កេតតាមការឃើញសង្កេតតាមរូបភាពសង្កេតតាមក្រសែភ្នែកដែលយើងឃើញជាក់ស្ដែង នៅសល់6នាទីទៀតវាហាក់បីដូចជាទៀន1ម៉ោងនេះកំពុងតែអត់បង្ហាញពីការព្យាយាមត្រឡប់ទៅលើតទៅសោះជាងចោះមក time frame 1កន្លះម៉ោងអូខេ time frame កន្លះម៉ោងវាជាទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្នគឺ7បាត់ទៀនកន្លះម៉ោងក៏ប៉ុន្តែវាហាក់បីដូចជាចង់បាត់នៅតំបន់ឬកន្លែងដែលវាបើកតែម្ដងចង់បាត់នៅតំបន់ដែលវាបើកតែម្ដងខ្ញុំលុបអ្វីទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងចោល clean ឲ្យវាស្រឡះភ្នែកតិចតើវាអាចមកធ្វើនេះគឺជាតំបន់ដែលយើងដាក់ការសង្កេតខ្ញុំមកប៉ះតំបន់ support នេះគឺជា support ដែលថ្មីកន្លងមកហើយនេះគឺជា resistance បដូរទៅជា support នៅខាងកន្លែងនេះស្ទៀនកន្លះមកវាហាក់ដូចជាវាតស៊ូរវាងអ្នកលក់និងអ្នកទិញនៅឡើយអញ្ចឹងវាអាចនៅពេលនេះសល់4នាទីអាចមានឱកាសបាត់នៅក្នុងកន្លែងដែលតំបន់ដែលបើកមានន័យថាវាអត់តជ្រើសផ្លូវច្បាស់លាស់ថាតែបន្តទៅណាឲ្យពិតប្រាកដបើទៅលើវាអត់សូវ clean វាអត់សូវមានភាព clean ស្រឡះប្រហែលដោយសារយើងឃើញមាន resistant បាទក៏ប៉ុន្តែ resistant ទាំងអស់ហ្នឹងវាមិនមែនជាឧបសគ្គរបស់ការធ្វើដំណើរនៃការធ្វើដំណើរឡើងរបស់វាទេប្រសិនបើ volume នៅពេលហ្នឹងវាមាននៅក្នុងពេលដែលមានអ្នកចូលមកទិញច្រើនវាអាចទម្លុះបានទាំងអស់ទាំង3ហ្នឹងទាំង3 resistance វាអាចទម្លុះឡើងទៅចេះបានសល់3នាទីទៀតតែវា break out វាមានឱកាស break out វាមានឱកាសមកបាត់នៅក្រោម zone support ឬក៏អត់បាត់នៅក្រោម zone support បែបនេះ yes តែស្មើគ្នាជាក់ស្ដែងគឺវាអញ្ចឹង yes បានន័យថាយ៉ាងម៉េចបានន័យថាវា break នៅតំបន់ support នៅខាងកន្លែងនេះអញ្ចឹងវាមានឱកាសបន្តមកក្រោមបានអាចថាទម្លុះ support នេះក៏អាចថាបានអូខេរងចាំនៅសល់2នាទីទៀតbut time frame 30នាទីខ្ញុំកាន់ microphone កាន់ mic ធ្ងន់មែនតើរហូតដល់ចប់ស្ពឹកដៃពេលនេះដោយសារវាបាក់ជើង mic របស់ខ្ញុំបាក់ជើងគួយកាន់មិនមែនជារឿងងាយស្រួលអីប្រហែលទេហត់ចុកដៃស្ពឹក រងចាំពេលនេះអ្វីដែលអាចធ្វើបានគឺរងចាំតែប៉ុណ្ណោះរងចាំតែម្យ៉ាងมันជាទាស់ខុសអីទេខ្ញុំត្រូវកែតម្រូវបន្តិចនេះគឺជា zone support ដែលគួរតែនៅត្រង់ចំណុចនេះអូខេហើយដែរបានខ្ញុំយ៉ាប់មែនតើយ៉ាប់ខ្ញុំមានអារម្មណ៍ថាដូចជាមិនត្រឹមត្រូវតទៅសោះlike ទាំងទស្សនីយភាពបែបនេះទៅជាការល្អសម្រាប់ការទស្សនាសល់ត្រឹមតែ10វិនាទីជាងតែប៉ុណ្ណោះអត់ទាន់មានអីជាចំណុចគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទេវាអត់មាន confirmation អ្វីទាំងអស់នៅក្នុងការចូល trade ដូច្នេះល្អបំផុតគឺរងចាំសង្កេតមកតើ but time frame 30នាទីជាការបិទលក្ខណៈ bearish ជាការបិទលក្ខណៈ bearishចុះមកក្រោមក៏មានឧបសគ្គដែរក៏ប៉ុន្តែវាមាន clean rank trongកន្លែងនេះ rank clean rank trongកន្លែងនេះ clean candle ត្រង់កន្លែងនេះបាទវាគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍វាមិនជាប្រមាណ pip ទេវាខ្លីដែរក្រោយវាមាន clean rank clean candle ឡើយហ្នឹងវាមានឧបសគ្គរបស់វាមួយទៀតគឺត្រង់ឡើយនេះគឺ support support ត្រង់កន្លែងនេះចុកដៃមែនតើខ្ញុំប្រហែលជាត្រូវចប់ការ live ខ្ញុំទៅអង្គុយចុចកំងរបស់តិចកំងរបស់វាដាច់ខ្សែមិនដាច់ខ្សែទេដាច់ជើងបែបនេះដាក់ចុះឥឡូវពិបាកបណ្ដោយពេលវាដាច់អញ្ចឹងបីដូចជាខ្សោយបន្តចុះក៏ប៉ុន្តែបន្តចុះលក្ខណៈខ្សោយអញ្ចឹងវាអាចមកធ្វើ support នៅក្នុងកន្លែងនេះចាំឬក៏កន្លែងនេះពេលនេះរងចាំគឺជារឿងដែលគួរធ្វើបំផុតហាមដាច់ខាតផ្ដេសផ្ដាស់រមាស់ដៃរមាស់ជើងចូល trade ហាមរមាស់ដៃអូខេច្បាស់ រងចាំខ្ញុំដាក់មួយទៀតរងចាំរងដភាសារងចស្រៈអា chef m ដាក់ឲ្យវាតូចដាក់ឲ្យវាធំវិញរងចាំពេលដែលអាចធ្វើបានគឺរងចាំហាម trade បើលោកអ្នកឆ្លើយខ្លួនឯងមិនចេញថាតើខ្ញុំមាន confirmation ហើយនៅគ្រប់គ្រាន់ហើយនៅក្នុងការចូល trade បើឆ្លើយខ្លួនឯងអត់ចេញទេហាម trade ឲ្យដាច់ខាតកង្ហល់បកភពពិតជារំខានមែនតើមើល1ម៉ោងវ៉ាវ1ម៉ោងសាហាវធ្លាក់មកឆ្វោកពេលនេះមកចាប់លោក Robier ជាស្ដាយសំទោសផងខ្ញុំមិនមែនជា ICT ទេអធិស្ឋានខ្ញុំមិនមែនជា trader ដែលប្រើយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រ ICT ឬ SMC នោះទេខ្ញុំគឺជា breakout trader ដោយប្រើ candlestick នៅក្នុងការវិភាគទៅលើចលនាឡើងចុះរបស់វាសុទ្ធសាធតែម្ដងដោយផ្អែកទៅលើការ break នៃតំបន់នៃ zone support និង resistance ឬក៏ trend line តាមដែលអាចទៅរួចតែគោលរបស់ខ្ញុំគឺការប្រើវិភាគទៅលើ candlestick ចលនារបស់ candlestick សុទ្ធសាធតែម្ដងដោយពិចារណាទៅលើការ break នៅតំបន់ដូចជា support និង resistance សំដៅស្អិតកពេលនេះយើងមាន zone ដែលមិនមែនជា zone ដែលគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ប្រហែលទេដោយសារវាអត់មាន clean move clean candle ប្រហែលវាអត់ស្រឡះទៅខាងលើបើសម្រាប់ time frame 30 នាទីទៅខាងលើក៏វាមានចាប់សិនអីគ ព្រោះវាឲ្យធំតិចងាយស្រួលក្នុងការសម្លឹងមើលបើទៅខាងលើវាមានresistance សង្កត់ចុះមកច្រើនកន្លែងទៅនេះក្នុងកន្លែងនេះមកក្រោមវាមានsupport ក្នុងកន្លែងនេះហើយនឹងកន្លែងនេះវាអត់សូវ clean ចង់និយាយថាចលនារបស់វាអត់សូវ clean ប្រហែលវាដូចជាឡើងចុះក្នុងក្របខ្លីៗចា៎ហើយបានខ្ញុំប្រើពាក្យថានៅក្នុងខណៈពេលនេះក្នុងម៉ោងនេះវាអត់សូវមានអ្វីគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍ប៉ុន្មានទេនៅក្នុងការវាយតម្រង់នៅ pattern បង្ហាញឲ្យយើងឃើញអត់ច្បាស់លាស់ប្រហែលទេមកចុះណាបែបនេះក៏ប៉ុន្តែបើសិនបើយើងកលេចមើលទៅ time frame 4ម៉ោងក៏វាមានចលនាឡើងចុះវាបន្សល់នៅកតុយទៀនវែងពីខាងលើមកជា rank នៅក្នុងហ្នឹងជា rank ដែលយើងបើសិនបើយើងសម្លឹងទៅនៅ time frame តូចវាឃើញចលនាក្វិចក្វាច់របស់វាបាទបែបនេះឡើងចុះបែបនេះអត់តាន់មានអីគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទេសម្រាប់ time frame 15នាទី30នាទីនិង1ម៉ោងបាទរងចាំដូចដើមរាល់ថ្ងៃមិនមែនជាការ trade ទេយើង trade រាល់ពេលដែលមាន information ការ confirmation និង confirmation ឲ្យយើងកុំត្រូវថាអូខេយើងមាន headផលគ្រប់គ្រាន់នៅក្នុងការចូល sell short ឬ buy long ក៏ប៉ុន្តែនេះវាអត់មាន headផលគ្រប់គ្រាន់នៅក្នុងការ sell short ឬ buy long អត់ចាំបាច់ trade ធ្វើការចូល trade សម្រាប់ជារឿងល្អបំផុត daily ត្រឡប់ទៅ daily កំពុងបន្តដំណើរសល់17 18ម៉ោងទៀតកំពុងតែបន្តដំណើររបស់ទៀន bearish ក្រហមឆ្អៅ4ម៉ោងក៏បន្តដំណើរ bearish វាបន្តដំណើរដល់ណាវាអាចមានឱកាសមកបិទឬក៏បន្តហួសឬក៏មក fill the wick ខាងក្រោមនេះនៃទៀនកន្លងមកឬក៏អត់អាចមកពេញនៅ snow ទៀននេះឬក៏អត់តាមរយៈម៉ោងដែលនៅសល់វាត្រឹមតែ1ម៉ោង47ទៀតសម្រាប់ time frame 4ម៉ោងដូច្នេះវាដូចជាមិនអាចសន្និដ្ឋានជាការសន្និដ្ឋានរបស់ខ្ញុំដូចជាមិនអាចមកដល់មកបំពេញនៅ wick snow ទៀនខាងក្រៅវាអាចគ្រាន់តែមកធ្វើប៉ះនៅ zone ហ្នឹងដែលជាអដីណាវានឹងបដូរទៅជា support ឡើងទៅលើវិញបដូរអំពីresistance trong កន្លែងនេះមកជា zone support ឡើងទៅលើវិញ បើថាឲ្យវាមកដល់នេះវាពេលនេះខ្ញុំអត់ជឿថាអញ្ចឹងវាមកបំពេញនៅ Vic Snow ទៀនខាងក្រោមនៃទៀនកន្លងមកដូចជាខ្ញុំអត់សូវជឿថាវានឹងធ្វើចលនាមកដល់អត់តន់ជឿតើឃើញបានជឿតែពេលនេះអត់ជឿវ៉ាវលេងសើចជាមួយខ្ញុំមែនតើទីផ្សារវាចាំតែកាច់បំបាក់យើងទេទីផ្សារនោះវាមិនចេតនាល្អសម្រាប់យើងទេដូច្នេះយើងកុំជឿទៅវាយើងជឿទៅលើខ្លួនយើងឲ្យបានច្រើនបំផុតតាមដែលអាចធ្វើទៅបានតាម frame 4ម៉ោងចោះមក1ម៉ោងវិញ1ម៉ោងវាទៅតាមនេះគឺយ៉ាងណាចឹងអ្វីដែលយើងដាក់ការសង្កេតគឺត្រង់ zone នេះតំបន់នេះចប់ដាក់ការសង្កេតនៅត្រង់ចំណុចតំបន់នេះគូសឲ្យវាយ៉ាងម៉េចឲ្យមើលទៅវាត្រូវអូខេប៉ុណ្ណេះស្អាតថាវាបំបែកទម្លុះទៅខាងលើឬក៏ទម្លុះមកក្រោមរងចាំខ្ញុំបិទ microphone បាទសួស្តីស្វាគមន៍សម្រាប់ការចូលមកកាន់ channel របស់ខ្ញុំសួស្តីលោក Dame ខ្ញុំអានឈ្មោះមិនបញ្ចេញសម្ដីមិនខុសទេលោកសុនវាសេស្នឹងអាចឡើងវិញទេបងបាទខ្ញុំបានអធិប្បាយមកច្រើនដែរមិញហ្នឹងទៅលើសំណួរដដែលវាអាចមានឱកាសបាទលោកដេមចូលមកលោកដេមសុនគាត់ចូលមកយឺតបន្តិចបាទមានឱកាសក៏ប៉ុន្តែឱកាសទាំងនោះវានៅក្នុងការសន្និដ្ឋានរបស់យើងវាអាស្រ័យទៅលើក្របនេះខ្ញុំបានបង្ហាញថាវា break ទៅខាងណាពេលនេះវានៅក្នុងក្របនៅឡើយយើងអាចសន្និដ្ឋានបានថាវាទៅណាឲ្យពិតប្រាកដទេក៏ប៉ុន្តែនៅក្នុងរយៈពេលវែងវាអូខេវាជាវាមានឱកាសនៅក្នុងការឡើងស្រាប់ហើយក៏ប៉ុន្តែសម្រាប់យើង trade លក្ខណៈចូលកាត់នំខេកខ្លីៗដូចជាយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រដើម្បីចូលទៅកាត់នំខេកពេលនេះយើងត្រូវសង្កេតនៅក្នុងក្របនេះសិនថាតើវា break ទៅក្រោមឬក៏ទៅលើថាតើក្រោយពេលវា break វាជាការ break បែប real break ឬជាការបែប fake out ឬ fall break out ជាការបញ្ឆោតយើងបាទ ពេលនេះ time frame កន្លះម៉ោង time frame 30 នាទីត្រូវបានបិទហើយបើកទៀនថ្មីបាន3នាទីហើយកំពុងតែបន្ត bullish នៅពេលដែលបើកមកភ្លាមវាហាក់បីដូចជាមក print ឬក៏វាតម្រង់នៅកតុយទៀនដើម្បីរុញគូតឡើងលើត្រង់ទៀនមួយនេះវិភាគបែបតាមដានចោះ1ទល់នឹង1វាតម្រង់ពុំនៅបែបណាគឺយើងវិភាគតាមតម្រង់បែបហ្នឹងវាបើកនៅទៀនប្រភេទណាហើយបិទនៅទៀនប្រភេទណាគឺយើងវិភាគទៅតាមភាពជាក់ស្ដែងរបស់វាទីបំផុតថាតើវា break វា break ទៅខាងណា break ខាងលើនៃ resistance ឬក៏ break នៅខាងក្រោមនៃតំបន់ support បាទនឹងវាចលនាវានឹងមែនតើសម្រាប់ time frame ធំបើយើង skate ទៅ time frame ធំវានឹងវាអត់តន់ចលនារបស់វានៅនឹងละลายខែនេះបើខ្ញុំមាន2ហាត់អ្វីបើខ្ញុំមាន2អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំ save វាទុកដើម្បីភាពងាយស្រួលរបស់ខ្ញុំនៅថ្ងៃក្រោយខ្ញុំសូម save វាថារងចាំដដែលខ្ញុំ copy ខ្ញុំមកកន្លែង template ខ្ញុំមកពាក្យថា save as ខ្ញុំ copy នៅនេះខ្ញុំលេខ2តាបាទលេខ2រងចាំ2 save ហើយចុច OK អាចឡើងវិញទេបងត្រង់កន្លែងនេះគឺបើសម្លឹងនៅក្នុង time frame ដែលខ្ញុំបានវិភាគកន្លងមកហ្នឹងគឺវាអាចមកសម្រាកសិនដោយសារវាត្រូវគោរពនៅ zone នេះវាត្រូវគោរពនៅតំបន់នេះសិនអានេះខ្ញុំនិយាយដដែលដោយសារមានបងប្អូនយើងចូលមកក្រោយថ្មីបាទវាគោរពនៅ zone និងគោរពនៅតំបន់ហ្នឹងសិនមុននឹងវាបន្តសម្រាប់ចិត្តថាមកបិទនៅខាងក្រោមទៀនបច្ចុប្បន្នឬក៏វាបន្តឡើងទៅលើបាទពេលនេះវាកំពុងតែគោរពនៅ zone កន្លងមកតំបន់កន្លងមកដែលជាតំបន់ resistant បាទដូចយើងបានឃើញtime frame weekly ខ្ញុំចោះទៅ1ម៉ោងវិញអូខេវាដូចជាបន្តធ្វើការគោរពនៅ zone resistance បានយូរមែនតើពេលនេះវាអត់មានអីគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទេបងប្អូនដូចខ្ញុំបាននិយាយទៀតវាមានអីគួរចាប់អារម្មណ៍តោះទៅសោះពេលនេះគឺរងចាំតែម្យ៉ាងដូចដែលខ្ញុំមកប្រើតែម្ដងរងចាំ2អូខេរងចាំតែម្យ៉ាងនៅពេលនេះសូមលោកអ្នករងចាំដោយក្តីដោយសេចក្តីអត់ធ្មត់និងរីករាយនៅក្នុងការរងចាំចូលរីករាយមិនមែនត្រឹមតែអត់ធ្មត់ទេគឺដោយរីករាយផងដែរវាមិនធ្វើឲ្យចិត្តយើងកង្វល់ខកខ្វាយឬក៏សម្លឹងទៅលើការចូល trade ពេកបាទខ្ញុំកាន់ microphone ធ្ងន់មែនតើដាក់វាសិន Breakout. Màu Do me my favorite. Do be គួយធុញត្រង់នឹងទីផ្សារបែបនេះវាមិនជាថ្មីទេវាជាថ្ងៃអាទិត្យវាជារឿងធម្មតានេះគឺជាថ្ងៃអាទិត្យរសៀលថ្ងៃអាទិត្យយើងទៅសង្ឃឹមអីទៅលើរសៀលថ្ងៃអាទិត្យថ្ងៃនេះតើយើងសង្ឃឹមអ្វីទៅលើវាគ្រាន់តែជារសៀលថ្ងៃអាទិត្យដែលគួរឲ្យ boring 1 ម៉ោងសង្កេតមើល1ម៉ោងអូខេ1ម៉ោងវាកតុយទៀនរបស់វាមកធ្វើកតុយទៀនបន្សល់នៅកតុយទៀននៅត្រង់កន្លែងនេះវាស្ទើរតែមកដល់កតុយទៀនអតីតវាត្រូវបានបដិសេធឲ្យមិនឲ្យធ្លាក់លើពីនឹងខ្ញុំដូចខ្សោយសំឡេងនៅសារអត់តែបានញ៉ាំបាយអត់ទៅមានថាមពលសោះតទៅសោះខ្ញុំមានពេលប្រហែល14នាទីទៀត14នាទីទៀតនៅក្នុងការធ្វើការផ្សាយផ្ទាល់នៅក្នុងសម្រាប់ថ្ងៃនេះបាទបងប្អូនមានសំណួរខ្ញុំនឹងធ្វើការឆ្លើយជាករណីដោយមិននិយាយច្រើនដូចពេលចាប់ផ្ដើមពីព្រោះវាដល់ពេលដែលត្រូវសម្រាប់អូ time frame 1ម៉ោងហាក់បីដូចជាស្រួចចុះមកក្រោម time frame 30នាទីវាហាក់បីដូចជាលក្ខណៈ engulf berries engulfing វាមកបាត់នៅក្រោមនៃទៀនកន្លងមកនៅពេលនេះវាធ្វើដំណើរមកហួសស្ទើរតែមកដល់នៅតំបន់ support ចាស់ខាងកន្លែងនេះរងចាំបងប្អូនdaily អូខេបាទ daily បាទនេះគឺជា support តំបន់ support ដើមជ្រៅបំផុតគឺនៅក្នុង time frame 4ម៉ោងបើសិនបើវាធ្លាក់វាអាចមកដល់នេះឬក៏អត់ខ្ញុំតន់អាននិយាយដល់ហ្នឹងដល់កន្លែងនេះសិន support កន្លែងនេះសិនហើយចាំកិតទៀតពេលខាងក្រោម 10 នាទីទៀតខ្ញុំនឹងរត់ចេញឲ្យឆ្ងាយអំពី Bitcoin នៅក្នុងថ្ងៃនេះដោយមិនធ្វើការចាប់អារម្មណ៍អ្វីទាំងអស់ទៅលើវា នេះគឺតំបន់ no trade zone and no T Z no trade zone bạnមើលទៅចលនាទៀននៅពេលនេះវាអត់មានអ្វីគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទាល់តែសោះអត់មានទាល់តែសោះដូច្នេះខ្ញុំមិនចាំបាច់រងចាំឲ្យដល់4 5 6នាទីទៀតទេខ្ញុំប្រហែលជារត់គេចចេញពី Bitcoin នៅពេលនេះជាបន្ទាន់បាទជួបគ្នានៅថ្ងៃស្អែកដែលជាម៉ោងនៅ Tokyo Session ជារៀងរាល់ថ្ងៃរៀងរាល់ម៉ោង 7 ថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំចូលមករៀងដោយសារថ្ងៃអាទិត្យហើយងើបអត់រួចព្រឹកមិញ ធម្មតាត្រូវផ្សាយផ្ទាល់នៅម៉ោង 7 តែថ្ងៃនេះម៉ោង 10 ចាប់ដើមនៅម៉ោង 10 ជាងបាទអត់មានអ្វីគួរឲ្យចាប់អារម្មណ៍ទេដើម្បីកុំឲ្យខាត់ពេលលោកអ្នកអាចទៅសម្រាកលំហែបានតែម្ដងហើយបំភ្លេចចោលនៅ chat នេះតែម្ដងបាទរីករាយថ្ងៃអាទិត្យថ្ងៃចុងសប្តាហ៍អរគុណសម្រាប់ការទស្សនាជួបគ្នានៅក្នុងថ្ងៃស្អែក Tokyo session ម៉ោង 7 អរគុណច្រើនបាទអរគុណ